powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel, airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. We have some special guests lined up for you in today's show, but first off, we have to do a quick 5 minutes just on Nets Sixers yesterday. So I know yesterday on the show I said I wouldn't watch it, but I did fully watch the whole game, and I have some thoughts, but let me just ask you first off, what were some of your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think the Brooklyn Nets look like when they're whole. Well, they were without Ben Simmons, but when they have KD and Kyrie, they are as advertised. Everybody's been saying that even though they're in the play-in tournament, wouldn't count them out in the playoffs, and I think they made a very resounding statement yesterday that nobody wants to see Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, let alone in a one-game play-in scenario, which the Raptors are in right now, although we can talk about Kyrie's availability. But nobody wants to see them in a 7-game series. And as much as the Nets are struggling through this regular season, that is, if we were to rank the teams, probably one of the teams in the East that I don't want to see at all, whether it's in a play-in scenario or in the first round.
Yeah, here's the thing. Everyone watched this game because there were only 2 games on last night in the NBA, and there was a lot of hype going into this one. You know, you saw fans literally spending their entire day following around Ben Simmons from the hotel to the team bus to the facility to the arena. People paying $4,000 minimum to sit lower bowl. It's the most hyped up Sixers ticket in a decade, which is a little sad to me.
Yes.
A little bit sad. You guys have been in the playoffs.
Like, how much would you pay? I know you're a credential media member, so you don't have to worry about this now. But sure, how much would you have paid for that Goran Dragic return game to sit behind the Nets bench? Okay.
Yeah, $65. Right.
Probably
I'm sorry, man.
Probably just redeem 3 media vouchers.
Listen, I've seen James Johnson in Toronto twice already in a Raptor uniform. I don't need to pay more money to see that.
Yes, but it was a very energized environment. Yeah. People were there to boo Ben Simmons, et cetera, et cetera.
And obviously the result was very lopsided. Like the Nets obviously smacking the Sixers in that way. To be honest, to me, you didn't learn anything new specifically. You just saw like 2 potential outcomes that you always knew was possible. Like that Brooklyn team, when they're at full throttle, when they're really focused, right? You saw the way Kyrie was playing defense. Obviously, KD's going to do what he does. You saw even the role players step up for them. I thought Bruce Brown played a good game. But, you know that's within them. That's why nobody wants to play them. That's why everyone's, like, really happy that they've tumbled down in the standings, right? And then on the other flip side, you know the Sixers have this element in them. Like, I know there's a lot of slander over James Harden, who was, like, 3 of 17 and just, you know, when you watch the game, wasn't that involved. But you know this about him. Like, he has this ability to do it once in a while where in a big moment, in a tight moment, he doesn't just, like, I don't even say it so much as, like, he chokes in the moment. Like, he's just, like, missing plays that would normally, you know, go in, right? He just kind of disconnects from the whole scenario.
And there's a running pattern. There's a running pattern of this, like, throughout his career.
Yeah, not like every single game, but, like, I think there are key moments, and we've seen them throughout the playoffs, that this has happened. So he disconnects in that game. Embiid was trying his best to sort of carry them at the start. You know, was yelling at Andre Drummond and, you know, going chest to chest with Kevin Durant. It's like, it's cool, man. And Embiid was honestly like, he just kept getting fouled at the start. But, you know, you could see that Sixers team of like, okay, past those top 2 guys, like, who else are you going to rely on? There's a lot of like Tobias Harris trying to decide I can take a shot here, or I don't even know. Tyrese Maxey completely disappeared, like just from the game period. But he's a young guy. You can kind of probably expect that in tight moments. So you kind of knew this about both teams. It just sort of showed you the best and worst case of both clubs. But I have to ask you though, Nets playing game concern meter. Let's just sort of take this temperature check once a week as we head into the playoffs. And the Raptors are most likely going to have to be in that play-in scenario, and Brooklyn's most likely going to have to be in that play-in scenario. Let me just get your concern meter out of 10 after seeing that yesterday.
Yeah, first of all, props again. You know, you're the pseudo-producer of this show, and you've come up with the best segments this season, so I just want to give you a quick shout-out there as my cult hero. I'm going to give it a 7. No, I'm going to give it an 8. My concern meter is an 8 right now for the Nets play-in, and I guess we do have to talk about Kyrie's availability, because as much as we talk about this Nets team when they're whole, right now, if the play-in tournament were to start and the Raptors are in that 7-8 matchup, forget about who's hosting the game, whether it's in Brooklyn or Toronto. As of right now, Kyrie would not be available for that game. Like, if Kyrie was available for that game, my concern meter would be 10. I would say,
15.
yeah, I would say let's just maybe, manage Fred VanVleet's minutes, see how the flow of the game goes, and just focus on the next game against Atlanta or Charlotte. But right now, I would put it at an 8. I don't want to see Kevin Durant even by himself in a play-in scenario. And, given what we've seen with the Raptors, even when they've been healthy, I think in that one-game scenario, the Nets would come in as favorites.
Yeah. They're definitely going to be favorites.
Yeah,
Even
so
without Kyrie.
my concern is very high for that. Right now, I feel like the Raptors would need to win 2 games.
Yeah.
They would need to play 2 games and win the second one to get into the playoffs.
All right. And this is a month from now. This game might not necessarily happen, although there's a strong likelihood it will. My concern meter right now is a solid 9 out of 10.
And that's
just
totally
watching
fair.
That game.
That's totally fair.
Just watching that game, it's, they sort of put the rest of the conference on notice. And very quickly, because we're going to get Matt Devlin on the line.
Yes, we're going to get Matt Devlin on the line in a second.
The paper tiger rankings in the Eastern Conference. I need 2 rankings right now. So who is the most paper tiger team in the East? Because the Sixers showed us a little bit of that might not be real. That might be a paper tiger.
I'm not going to write off the Sixers just from that one game.
No, I agree.
Okay, we've seen this pattern from James Harden, and I don't know how much Sixers fans can trust him in the playoffs. That still remains to be seen. Can I be honest with you? Yes.
We've seen this pattern from not just James Harden, but Embiid has these moments. I know Sixers fans
Embiid had a good game yesterday, though.
Yeah, 5 of 17, man.
Okay.
Against Andre Drummond.
Didn't he get to the free throw line 19 times in the first half?
That's the first half. It was true, and they were down double digits. It wasn't his fault.
You could pretty much write off the second half, though. The game was done.
Okay, I mean, it's at home. It's a big game.
Okay,
I would expect at least a fake comeback.
Okay, but I think the biggest concern for the Sixers going to the playoffs would be James Harden. More James Harden than Joel Embiid.
I'm just saying, you've seen a pattern of this from James, from Joel. Yeah. They're coached by Doc Rivers.
I don't trust Doc Rivers.
Tobias Harris, we know, is just what he is.
How much depth does that team have? Right.
They did trade some of their depth away.
Yeah. So that's a concern as well. I wouldn't put the Sixers at the top.
Okay.
Of this
so
paper tiger.
Who is the biggest paper tiger for you in the East right now?
I would still say the Bulls. Yeah. I do feel like the way the Bulls are constructed, and right now they're the 4th seed, but everybody's still really bunched up. For me, I would still take the Bulls.
Yeah.
And I think
agree.
Miami, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, I still think those are the top 3 teams. And I think maybe by the time the playoffs roll around, we might be talking about Boston as well.
Boston's looking really good.
So they're looking really good. So I would go with the Bulls.
Yeah, and the thing with Boston is that they're also a very experienced group. The thing is, I think playoff experience is really going to matter. Suddenly, almost every team in the East has real playoff experience. Until you get down to Cleveland, these teams have all been there before. The cores are relatively intact for the time being, and man, I can't wait for the playoffs. But it's going to be really stressful as a Raptor fan. Let's just get there first. And
let's get there. 4 more weeks to go in the regular season. Now, I know this week you have been trying to change the vibes. Let's get some positive vibes in the studio. And I think we both agree the person who brings some of the best vibes, especially on this Raptors show, is Matt Devlin.
Right.
So, we got Matt Devlin on the line. I know you've got a few questions to ask him. So I think we're gonna talk to Matt right now and change the vibes. Okay? Matt, how are you?
Let's change vibes. Let's change vibes. It's all about, and I'm outside. Hopefully, it's not too loud. I wanted, speaking of changing the vibes, I'm trying to get some of this vitamin D and feeling good and getting ready for this Phoenix Suns gauntlet that the Raptors are going to face tonight.
Yeah, well, let's just go through the last 2 weeks for you because it's. Just take us through what happened, what's going on.
How long is your show?
We got time, Matt.
We always got time for you, man. Come on.
Trust me, I don't want to bore you guys with the details, but, tested negative, PCR flying down to Charlotte, day of the game, tested again, tested unfortunately positive. Fortunately, the symptoms were extremely mild. So I quarantined for 5 days in my hotel room in Charlotte. And then above and beyond, I will say this, CDC and then the 10 days above and beyond that, the NBA does have another threshold and another set of protocols. And so that took, I want to say, 7-8 days to clear through that, which then allows you to be back around the team. And then I was able to then, fortunately, get to San Antonio, cleared protocols, and, it was great to be back calling games and seeing Fred VanVleet excel as well as Pascal Siakam. So I think just very much like everybody else, through all of this, as you open back up, things are going to happen. But very fortunate that the symptoms were extremely mild.
Yeah, look, listen, it's good to hear that you weren't affected too much, obviously, with the symptoms, and it was great to hear you back on the call. I mean, I gotta ask you though, what's been the experience like watching the Raptors games on a television in a hotel room? Because like obviously to like 99% of the population, that's just how people receive games. But
Yeah.
for you, I'm not even kidding. I think you probably have called 99% of Raptors games and worked 99% of Raptors games over the
Yeah.
last like decade, right? So how
Yeah.
much was that of a change was that for you?
Well, it is different, but I would say this, that because of the last really 3 seasons, right? Because it's hard to believe this is essentially the 2-year anniversary of everything stopping. That the bubble season, I was calling a game off of a TV monitor, and so I've watched the team a lot on TV, obviously with me calling the game compared to not calling it now. But even when a team is playing like the Raptors, in my mind, I'm still kind of painting a picture as I'm watching the team. So it's interesting. Now, Sunday night, it was an ESPN show, so you watch the ESPN show here in the U.S. But again, it wasn't, interestingly enough, that different. I think only because earlier in the season, Jack Armstrong and myself, we quarantined, as you may recall, so we missed a couple of games there because of close contact, and then this time, so it was. But it's a little bit, it's a little bit surreal for sure.
So you weren't at home saying contact no call on a few drives from Scotty Barnes?
I think I said that in my mind about 20 times. But you guys just get to hear it verbalized,
Yeah, fair enough.
Contact, no call.
Yeah, listen, this has been a weird year for pretty much everybody, but look, at least the NBA is sort of trying to get through it. And,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you actually about Scotty, because I think in our efforts to change the vibes, and look, the Raptors, they did it themselves. They had a really nice win over San Antonio, and we saw Scotty really take over in that game. And I just wanted to ask you, like, you're as close to the team as about anybody can possibly be, and you're following them around, and you're seeing the work that goes into everything. What's that one thing from Scotty that maybe we can't see as fans or at home, but that you see up close about Scotty that impresses you the most this season?
Well, I think watching it, I think people do get a sense of feel, and that is the great thing about Scotty. He has a natural feel to the game. And he has that ability, the vision, and you guys see this because of the plays that he makes. And he is someone that, look back on Wednesday night, how he went in the post with the left, with the right. His game is, for a 20-year-old, has some vet to him, right? He's got that veteran sort of feel to the game, which to me elevates him to a whole other, stratosphere when you start talking about rookies. But I think people see all of those things, and I think that that's really the joy in watching Scotty, is what is he going to become? Because we can all see eventually the ball running through him all the time, high post, right? Just picking people off with the different levels of passing that he can do, the ability to get to the rim, and that expanding with the 3 ball, which we've seen stretches of that, which is a really positive thing. But there is a joy for playing the game. But I think all of that, Alex, will come through the television screen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think I was feeling a lot of joy seeing him take over. I mean, Jakob Poeltl is look, the Raptors had Jakob Poeltl. They drafted him. We know what he's about. He's a pretty solid defensive center, true 7-footer, keeps his hands up, good in defensive position. And Scotty Barnes just looked at him and said, "Yeah, that's cool, but I'm going to score on you."
Yeah, I'm going to take you down here.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the old school part of it, right? It's
Yeah,
like, I'm going to take you right here, and this is what I'm going to do, right? And so that, to me, was the thing that really stood out. And by the way, I'm a huge Jakob fan. Think about his contract, right, and what he's able to do and set up. Like, to me, from a field goal percentage standpoint, top 10, blocks, top 10, rebounding, he's in the mix there. I mean, he's doing a lot of really positive things at a number that is really team friendly.
Yeah, seriously. And look, I think a lot of the coverage, obviously, look, for the Kawhi trade, the Raptors definitely got what they wanted out of it. A championship, memorable times. Literally, you can't ask for more from that trade. Obviously, Danny was really good in that deal, too. But the Spurs got something real from it. We saw it the other night, too, with Keldon Johnson. They've developed him, and he can be a nice scorer for them at times. And we saw, I think he led them in scoring. And Jakob Poeltl, and obviously DeMar was a really, really it was the core piece of that, and he was very good for them for 2 years. But you know what? On this topic of positivity and just joy, I wanted to wrap up with this because we saw this moment all over social media where your son Jack Devlin hit a halftime shot during an Iowa Hawkeyes game. The crowd went nuts. The players all mobbed them. Just please take us through that moment for you as a father and your reaction to it.
Well, thank you for mentioning it, because it gives me an opportunity to talk about the program that he's in, the University of Iowa Reach program, which is realizing education and career hopes for students 18 to 25 that have cognitive, intellectual, and learning disabilities. And Jack's 22 years of age. The basketball program there with Fran McCaffrey they've just been amazing to him. He's been a student manager. He's interned with them. He's worked last summer, their summer camps. And they actually, much to our surprise, said, "Oh, yeah, we're going to get him to shoot a half-court shot." And it was senior night, and it actually was during a timeout late in the second half where he had 35 seconds. But as I've told people, the 35 seconds, like, he only had 35 seconds and he made it on the second shot. But for Jack, time, whether it's 35 seconds, 35 minutes, it didn't really matter to him. And, to see that brought a tear to my eye. And it just speaks to so many possibilities with so many, kids and adults and young adults that, have disabilities, and being able to be brought in with open arms and the joy that he has. But in talking to the head coach there, Fran McCaffrey, he said, for as much as you believe that Jack is receiving from us, we're getting that back even more, with his presence and value to the team. So it was really cool. As you know, it went viral. Erin, my wife, was supposed to be there. She tested, and unfortunately she tested positive, so she couldn't be there for it on senior night, but we all watched it. And that night, I think one of the coolest things was, as a parent, with FaceTime, all three of my sons and myself and my wife, and we all just had a great laugh. And I called up right after the game. I ended up calling Jack, FaceTiming him before we did the group FaceTime, and I said, I'm like, "Jack," and he's like, "Drano." And it was awesome. So I may have to mix in a Drano one of these days.
You should. You absolutely should.
But thanks for asking about that. It, provides, he's student manager. He does everything, with that program, and they've just been amazing to him. And there's some Iowa Hawkeyes that are NBA players, inclusive of Joe Wieskamp, the other night in San Antonio, and I went over and I said, Joe, I'm Matt Devlin, Jack's dad. And he goes, "Oh, Jack." He goes, I would think, and so Luca Garza, the same thing. It's been amazing, the amount of ex-players there that still, because he's been a part of the program for the last 4 years, stay in touch with them and stuff. And cool. So thank you for that.
No, thank you. And send our love to Jack and the rest of your family, because you know what? You have delivered exactly what we wanted. You know, we wanted to change the vibes on the show. The vibes are incredibly positive right now. Matt Devlin, good luck on the call tonight. We love hearing you, and we'll call you again soon.
Contact, no call.
No, we need a good night Phoenix tonight, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we want.
Good night, Phoenix.
Let's get a good night Phoenix tonight, Matt, please.
Okay, I'll have to break one of those out again. You know.
Yeah.
Good night, Phoenix.
All right, clip that for next week. Matt, really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of the road trip, and can't wait to talk to you soon.
Okay, you guys. Thank you so much for having me. Take care.
Raptors cult hero, Matt Devlin.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So on the second half of the show, we are gonna continue our draft
By popular demand,
round
and
2,
and by will lose demand.
That's right,
Yeah.
because you know everything I say on the show goes. But seriously though, how do we not draft Matt?
You know what? Instead of drafting him, we're gonna right now induct Matt Devlin into the all-time Raptors cult heroes Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
He doesn't need to be in the draft. He's in the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
So we're gonna put him in the Hall of Fame.
It's not fair for any of us to have him.
No. He should be appreciated and all of that stuff. So, yes. So before we do that second segment, I know that we wanted to come up with some regular season goals for the remainder of this season for the Raptors, because there are only 17 games left, and you know we've talked about whether this team can make it out of the play-in tournament, whether they can maybe make the first round of the playoffs and all that. But I think it's worthwhile to also just give perspective to this season and look at what the goals are, because coming in, we knew this was a development season. I remember Masai doing an interview at the home opener, basically saying that this is a rebuilding year.
But to be fair, he was watching the home openers, and they scored 80 points.
Yeah, it was looking like a long rebuild. By the time Lupe Fiasco stepped out to do his halftime performance. Yeah. Why didn't he do kick push? I don't know. Yeah. But so we each have
the Raptors score 100 points.
So we each have why did Goran start? So we each have 5 goals here. Let's start with you.
All right. So my number 1 goal is make the playoffs proper. Like, not the play-in tournament, like get through the play-in tournament. I mean, look, there's still an outside chance they can make it up to that 6th seed, although we really need to see a really strong finish of the season, which the team, I think, is capable of so long as they get healthy. They already got Fred back. OG's going to be soon. Malachi will be soon or whatever. But just make the playoffs. And if it has to be through the play-in, that Nets game, I mean, damn, it's going to be a tough one. Look, my only thing is the Raptors have played the Nets well. There are advantages that the Raptors have over that team as well. Of course, they have the ultimate
save that
hammer.
for play-in week,
They have the ultimate hammer in Kevin Durant. But listen, ultimately, if the Raptors play the Hornets or Hawks, I think those are beatable teams in my opinion. The Raptors are 2-1 against them both this season, and both losses were right after the All-Star break when the Raptors were not healthy and also just not focused, period. I'm not trying to say those losses should be eliminated. Like one of the wins against Atlanta was without Trae Young. Obviously, that's a big factor, but I think our ability as a team to play small ball against those two teams in particular who don't have dominant bigs should give the Raptors a good edge in those games. So that's my number 1 goal, make the playoffs. But I see your number 1 goal is much lower than make the playoffs. Go ahead.
Yeah, baby steps. You got to just lower expectations, especially when it's not a championship season. But I think this is a worthwhile goal. My first one is for the team to finish above 500 in the regular season.
It's too modest.
There's 17 games remaining. They need to go 7-10 to finish 42-40. And I'm just looking more big picture. I think it would mean that they would only have had one losing season, the Tampa season, since 2013-14, which is a pretty sustained stretch of excellence, in my opinion, especially if you look around the league, given the player turnover and how teams operate. And also, we shouldn't forget that would be a huge improvement from the 27-45 record in Tampa last year. Now, obviously, you can put all sorts of asterisks on the Tampa season because they weren't actively trying to win games during those, last 6 to 8 weeks of the season. Basically, after the trade deadline, they kind of phoned it in, and Kyle was just on the golf course and all that stuff. But, I think just having a winning record to me would it's not going to be a banner that's going to get raised, but it would mean something to me. So what's your next goal?
That's too low for me, man. That's not a goal.
Asian parenting.
Number 2 goal, solidify the rotation, right? I'm still not fully sure who Knicks likes at what time, right? I think I know who the 7 guys are because we've seen him cut the rotation down to 7. It's your 5 starters, Fred, Gary, OG, Pascal, Scotty, plus Chris Boucher and Precious Achiuwa coming off the bench, Where does Thad Young fit into that? Is he the 8th guy for you? Is Kem Birch, who's been starting a lot of games, is he in that mix? To be honest, I don't think he's played well enough to be in that mix. And are you starting with a center? If you run into a center, what do you do? So I still want to see the rotation a little more solidified, but that's something where the team has to be fully healthy first. And maybe that's my bigger goal, is just get there healthy. What's your second goal?
Yeah, so shouts to Blake Murphy for the stat. Blake, please just keep putting up stats so I can just cut and paste them into the rundown. Franchise record for three-pointers made in a season for Fred VanVleet. So the record right now is Kyle Lowry, 238 threes set in the 2017-18 season. Fred obviously just came back from injury, but he's well on pace. He's at 211 threes right now, so he just needs 27 threes in 17 games.
That's less than 2 a game.
Yeah, so I think this is just basically based on health. Like, if he plays, he's going to get it. And I think Fred's had such a banner year. I know we talked so much about his minutes, we talked about his injuries and all that, but let's not forget, first-time All-Star, stepping into this role, really being the leader and the number one option for this team, answered a lot of questions, I think, that we had coming into the season. So I think getting that record would be super meaningful for Fred.
Yeah, I think that would be a nice memento to take from this year, no matter what happens beyond that. My third thing is just lock in on defense, because I think my concern all season is just this team on paper has great defenders. When you look at them in practice, each of them individually are pretty good defenders, but this team is 14th in defensive rating, only slightly ahead of OKC. All right. And my question is just like, when are you going to get serious about that and be as solid as you can be defensively? We know defensive rebounding might be a concern at times. We know that they'll foul a lot because they are in rotations, but is there a moment where they can pivot away from like the let's force as many turnovers as possible and maybe gamble as much as possible to like, can we be solid when you need to be? And I think that in order to win that playing game, you're going to need to be really, really solid defensively, because you're going to be facing Brooklyn, and then after that, Charlotte or Atlanta. All 3 teams are deadly offensively, so your defense must be there. What's your third point?
Yeah, so my third one, you gave me a hard time for saying that finishing above 500, is not a good enough goal. So I'm going to set the bar high.
That's like telling your Asian parents that you came home with the honor roll, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Proficiencies only.
Anyways, more personal stories to come in the coming weeks as we, struggle for content. But yeah, for Scotty, I'm setting the bar high. I want him to maintain his current post-All-Star break averages for the rest of the season. Right now, he's averaging 18.8 points and 8.8 rebounds on 60% shooting since the All-Star break. And I looked this up on StatMuse. So rookies since 1991 who has averaged 18 and 8 on 50% shooting. The list is Shaq, Alonzo Mourning, Tim Duncan, Blake Griffin, and Karl Anthony Towns. Now, obviously, Scotty is a very different player type.
Yeah.
But I do think, given all the potential that we've seen, and especially lately that he's been coming on, I think, this would let the Raptors, however far they go in the play-in or the playoffs, really go into the offseason as the number one reason for optimism, moving forward, is just how quickly Scotty has developed. And I think if he can maintain these averages, then he can go into the second season and we can start setting even higher goals for him. So that's my third one.
I like that one. That's the first real goal from you, I think. My fourth one is, can Pascal Siakam make an All-NBA push? And you might say, well, the last couple of games here, he hasn't been that spectacular. He might have missed a chance. Maybe or maybe not. Because when you've seen the last 2 months that Pascal's been on, 33 games in that stretch, averaged 23 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.5 steals, a block, shot 50% from the field. Those are all NBA level numbers, especially if the team is really good, which at that time they were. Now, you might think about who's in contention. Well, you got Giannis, LeBron, KD, and Jason Tatum. And KD, by the way, at maximum right now can play 55 games, but let's be real, they're going to make KD in the All-NBA team. Okay, so those 4 forwards are for sure ahead of Pascal. I have no argument against that. But past that, I don't know. I think Pascal has as good of a case as Brandon Ingram or, Jaylen Brown or, all these other guys, right? So, we'll always have to see in terms of positioning, right? Guys like Doncic and DeRozan, they're probably going to make All-NBA, but are they going to be guards or forwards? We'll see. But I think Pascal has a real case. And, of course, he has to finish the season strong. And my question is just, how much does he have to get there? And I think if he can get the Raptors into that 6th seed, if he can have 1 or 2 super viral moments, if he can hit a game winner, right? I think, honestly, that would really propel his case and build his case. But it's there to be made. It's unlikely for me at the moment, just based on how the national media would vote. But he could potentially do it if he finishes really strong. All right, what's your fourth point?
Yeah, so basically for me, the fourth one with OG Anunoby, I want him to return from injury and just have a really strong finish to the season. And right now he's averaging 17 and a half points per game. And I know before the start of the season, we had set the bar on whether he could be a 20-point per game scorer. So I
Yeah.
want him to see if he can get to 20 points per game. Now he's going to need a very strong finish here, but I think it's been so many starts and stops when we talk about OG. Like at the start of the season when Pascal was hurt, he was anointed as the number one option, and we saw some of the things that he could do. Now, his efficiency has come down a lot this season because of the increased usage, but I think there's still a development curve for him to kind of hit. And so I hope that, he can come back from injury and get that average to 20 points per game. And again, something to take into the summer to feel good about.
I agree. All right, last thing for me, tie up the loose ends on the storylines and the narratives. Utah,
Your
let's get that
storylines?
ramen.
Okay,
All right,
okay.
listen, Utah, I know you got free time. Let's get some ramen. I'll pay.
He's got free time
You can
during the
pick the
game. You
spot.
ask him to go during the game at halftime?
Listen, man, looking at ramen in the arena, all right? But let's just make this happen already. Chris, let's do this home and home podcast on your show, on my show, and let's get all this out of the way before the playoffs so we can focus completely on the playoffs. I don't think anyone's going to want to hear about ramen
We don't
or
want
podcasts.
So you're saying you don't want Will Lou to be a distraction heading into the playoffs?
Yes, that's
is
exactly
you're
what I'm saying. And I'm going to only be focused on the playoffs at that point. I'm not going to be focused on all this other extracurricular stuff. Your last point?
So you're going to be locked in? You're going to be like the players? Are you going to shut down your social media? No, you're not
I
doing
doubt that, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. My last one is just, I know I mentioned earlier this season, point out that Svi was struggling to get to 3 3-pointers made per game, and he still hasn't hit that mark yet. We saw him have the 40-point game with the Raptors 905. I'm rooting for Svi. I'm still pushing for Svi to get 3 3-pointers in a game before the regular season is over.
Yeah. I'm not going to hold out hope on that one.
All
But,
right.
all right, that does it for us in the first half of the show. I've been your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. When we come back, we're going to do round 2 of the Raptors all-time cult hero draft. And now a message from our presenting sponsor. Discover the best eats in your neighborhood on DoorDash without leaving your home. So many options to choose from, and ordering is easy. For a limited time, you get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on your first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter the code THEFAN25. Feel up for tip-off order today through the DoorDash app or DoorDash.com. DoorDash, delicious, delivered. Terms and conditions apply. See site for details. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. I continue to be joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. What are we doing for the second half?
Yeah, so back by popular demand and back by Will Lou's demand, we are going to do part 2 of the all-time Raptors Cult Heroes draft. If you missed it, go catch the episode from yesterday on our podcast feed where we had CBS Sports' James Herbert join us, and we each made 5 picks. So let's do a quick recap before we bring James on to do round 6 to 10 of this draft.
That's right. So this is what we had in the first round, all right? We had James's team was Jorge Garbajosa, Matt Bonner, Rafer Alston, Samuel L. Jackson, and Keon Clark. There's a lot of players on that team, all right? But that's a very solid team. My team is Amir Johnson, Serge Ibaka for the off-court stuff, not the on-court stuff. Chuck Swirsky, I got Drake, and what about DeRozan, a.k.a. Courtney Swan? And then your team, Alex, you have me, which is weird, but okay. You have Matt Thomas, you have Alec McKechnie, Master P, and Masai Ujiri, which that last pick is still contentious to me.
You have Serge and Drake. Those are popular too.
He's the literal.
Masai is the literal
He's the
cult hero.
chairman
Yeah, he's the only chairman you acknowledge. We've established that. So we're doing round 6 to 10 today, but you wanted to institute a new rule, right?
Yes, I think we can only draft 2 more players max. Because if we were just doing like the best cult hero players, we could have just done pure players.
Yes,
you know,
which we might do. Stay tuned for part 3 next Monday.
Listen, we have a long offseason ahead of us.
If the Raptors lose to Phoenix and Denver this weekend.
We're going to win. We're going to win.
Okay, so we've got James Herbert back on the line today. James, how are you? Welcome back. First back-to-back guest, I believe.
I am so glad that you guys decided to do another round of this because I had a bunch of names that were on my short list that none of us drafted, so I'm stoked.
Yeah, so I think all of us left a lot on the table yesterday, and we did get some feedback as well. On,
a lot of people were upset.
Yeah, but when you draft, it's never going to be complete, right? Like you're always going to have people with
there's
other
going to be a Fred
suggestions.
VanVleet of this draft.
Yeah, I welcome the suggestions, honestly, because there are so many cult heroes. So let's get right into it. James Herbert, you once again have the first pick in every round. So this is round 6. What is your pick, James?
Well, there's one guy who, when we finished and I looked at who we'd picked, I actually felt actively bad for. Nobody in Raptors history, I think, worked harder to establish themselves as a cult hero than Jerome, the Junkyard Dog Williams. So I want to take him with my first pick today. He was a cult hero, honestly, from the day that he was traded to Toronto, hopped in his pickup truck in Detroit, drove through a snowstorm to get there as quickly as possible, and immediately the city kind of fell for him.
That's a great pick. I can't believe. How do we let James do this?
Yeah, I think JYD is, I'm not sure how to put this. Like, it's an obvious cult hero pick that maybe we just kept leaving it on the table to get other people that we specifically want. And that's how JYD slipped. I can't believe I'm doing draft analysis right now. Okay, Will, what is
Can you be the Jalen Rose of this draft?
Yeah.
Give me the JYD comp for people who weren't here.
What is the JYD wingspan?
Oh, hold on. Give me the JYD comp, right? You know how they always have they
Yeah,
draft Jason Tatum and the comparison is like Kevin Durant.
James, what is the JYD cult hero comp?
So, imagine if Scotty Barnes wasn't the number 4 pick, but was the 55th pick and came in as purely just the energy guy stuff. None of the superstar potential, just the being hype and having energy and hustle. That is the comp, I think.
Okay.
No, I like that.
Damn.
All right, Will Lou, what is your round 6 pick?
Very similar in keeping with my team, which already has Amir Johnson and Serge Ibaka. I'm going to take Bismack Biyombo. I think
that's
for
a good one.
1 year, that man had developed so many fans in Toronto. Even when he comes back, I saw, when he came back with Phoenix, it was an empty arena, but he was greeting all the security people, and he's just so beloved here. He had a great vibe and positive energy to him. Obviously, what he did throughout the conference finals run that year was amazing. He had he broke a Hakeem record in terms of rebounds, and he had 26 rebounds or 27 rebounds in a game.
Yeah, anytime you break a Hakeem record, you have
not
to
a Hakeem Raptors record, like a Hakeem Houston record, okay? So I'm going to take Bismack Biyombo, and also shout out to the time I saw him at TIFF as well. This guy was a man of culture as well. That's right.
Okay, you go to TIFF and you're cultured, according to Will.
I mean, it's the best thing that happens in the city, man.
Hey, I'm going to TIFF for a movie this weekend, so I'm pretty cultured.
No, I'm not talking about the TIFF Lightbox. I mean the actual
the festival. Okay, yeah, it's the same, though. I'm still cultured. Anyways, I don't have to draft a player, right? As long as I draft 2 players.
Just 2 players max in the second round. We can just go only players we want.
I'm going to bend the rules a little later, too, but we'll get to that. So I'm going to take Herbie Kuhn because I feel like,
nice.
we talk about Herbie a lot. on this program, and we know that Herbie brings his own flavor when it comes to describing players and kind of setting the tone at the arena. So, and he's a day one guy. Like, he's been here since the 1995-96 season. And I think when you talk about people who are so integral to the overall Raptors viewing experience, especially at the arena, Herbie to me is a one of one. So I'm taking Herbie. Yeah, so on to round 7. James, what is your pick?
I'm gonna get my last player out of the way. I'm gonna take Jamario Moon,
Ah, no.
who was a you were gonna take him, Will?
Yes.
He made the team out of a mini camp. He was a 27-year-old rookie. He'd spent 6 years in the D League, like literally like the first D League season he was in the D League. Played in the USBL, ABA, CBA, WBA, played in Mexico, and was almost immediately a starter for this team that was just cursed at the small forward position for like a decade.
That's how bad the Raptors depth was
And
at
you
the
know,
time. We're just a step up from Mexico, but keep going.
yeah, I think by the end of his tenure, he wasn't quite as popular, but right at the beginning, man, I mean, he was coming in, he was dunking on people. He had maybe the greatest rebound in Raptors history. Like, it's
Yes.
actually got like a ton of views on YouTube if you look up that rebound. And was just like kind of like he was a fun personality and he had this incredible story. I think he was a natural cult hero type then. And if he were to show up in Toronto now and go to a game, I think he'd get a really great reception.
Yeah, and one way to, I think, to define a cult hero too is you still see Jamario Moon's jerseys when you go to the arena. Like,
Yes.
I always see, like, 1 or 2 of those, and so I think that's a great pick. All right, James is crushing us again.
Yeah,
so
man.
Will, what you got next?
I can't believe it. This is devastating. I was definitely going to take Jamario Moon. As a kid, I already described the story, but at a summer camp, as like a 10-year-old, one of the activities for the day was there's a blank T-shirt. You could design whatever you want on this thing, like an arts and crafts project. And I made myself a Jamario Moon jersey. That's how much I enjoyed watching Jamario as a child. So this is heartbreaking. I'm going to take Jose Calderon as my last player here. Again, as a case we made, he's a little bit too good. But I just think that, look, he's just represented the team positively. Was was he? Like, wasn't he 4th in the league in assists at one point, which is an achievement, I guess. Also, you had the free throw record. Remember that year?
Yes,
that's right. The percentages.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't he like 98%? Like, he was like a crazy.
Oh yeah,
high
no, he was on the
percentage.
proficiency roll for sure on that one. So yeah, I'm gonna take Jose Calderon, beloved player, and yeah, I don't really need to say any. Oh yeah, and Blake Murphy named his dog, I think, after Jose Calderon one time.
Oh really?
I think so.
What do you mean one time?
I'm gonna ask him about it next week.
Passed away. Okay.
Maybe,
Anyways.
yeah.
So my next one, I'm gonna take the slander expert Assad Alvi, aka at Swar Lasers on Twitter.
God.
Once again, my approach to cult heroes is how much do these people add to the overall Raptors experience, and we know that the slander pod has become like part of the Raptors Twitter and the Raptors podcast lexicon, because especially during the championship season and the 2019-20 season. Whenever there was a big game, like say when Marc Gasol held Joel Embiid to 0 points, or whenever the Raptors beat these so-called other contenders, people were on the Twitter timeline asking for the slander pod. Yeah, and usually Will and Assad would deliver. So for that to become such a fabric, I think, of consuming the Raptors, especially in this digital age, Assad is the go-to guy. Like, you call on Assad whenever you need that task to be done. So I'm taking him as my cult hero in round 7. Okay. So on to round 8. James, you've picked your 2 players. So where are you going next?
I've mainly been taking people from like before I started covering basketball, but I'm going to switch that up. I'm going to take former assistant coach Tom Sterner, who was on Dwayne Casey's staff from 2011, 2015. And the reason why I'm taking him is because he was TV Tom. Yep. He gave the greatest like coming out of halftime interviews in maybe NBA history. Like, he would stare at the camera, he would get really passionate and deliver these monologues that were just incredible. And I miss them to this day.
Yeah, it was so intense. He would look directly into the camera, through it into your soul, and tell you that the Raptors need to pick up their transition defense for the second half. And it's incredible stuff. What a great pick. He wasn't even on my list, but this, honestly, I didn't know we were drafting with Sam Presti over here.
No, James is locked in right now.
I feel like Danny Ainge right now.
I'm Billy King right now. I don't even actually. I'm Sam Presti, man. I'm like on the salary cap floor. I don't have any players. All right, Will, round 8. What you got?
Yeah, this is way too low, but come on, man. We're really gonna let Superfan fall to round 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right. I got Drick and Superfan. All right, I have the most star-studded, event in terms of just like watching from the sideline. Okay, you get the massages from Drake, then you get the free car from Nav, and you have the fashion game.
Yo, all I got is a slander pod because I got Will Lou and
Yeah,
Assad.
this guy trying to draft Yahoos from 2019. All right, keep going, man. But yeah, I've got a super fan. Come on.
Okay, I like that. So I'm gonna bend the rules a little bit and actually take 2 players in one, and you guys can petition later. For me, I'm gonna pick the original 2 sharpshooters that I remember from the start of the Raptors. That would be Tracy Murray and Walt Williams. So Tracy Murray was here only for the first season, but I remember watching him vividly. He was a huge part a lot of those great wins during that first season, even though there was few and far in between. He was signed to a minimum deal, and the Raptors weren't able to give him the raise that he deserved. And I know he desperately wanted to stay in Toronto, and he wasn't able to, and he took a larger contract with Washington. He did later come back. And then I remember Walt the Wizard Williams with the high knee socks, and he played here for 2 seasons. Like, we talk about all these sharpshooters over the years. I know, Will, you've never heard of, Hubert Davis.
I had to look all these guys up.
Yeah, but, we know the present-day ones, like, say, a Matt Thomas. So I'm trying to fill my team with 3-point shooting, but I'm going back.
This guy said, I need 3 Matt Thomases on my team.
Yeah. So we're playing pace and space. So I'm taking Tracy Murray, Walt Williams, and also I just want to use this kind of next like round 6 to 10 to kind of show some love to more of the OGs as well, because I know newer fans are familiar. So
you're trying to write prehistoric.
So shouts to Tracy Murray, Walt Williams. On to round 9. James Presti, what is your next pick?
I'm going to pick up right where you left off. I'm going to go back to the Skydome days with the Wizard and Tea Time. I'm going to be sitting there with Samuel L. Jackson. You know who's going to be coming up to our seats and hyping us up? The Bleacher Creature.
You're going to have to explain the Bleacher Creature to Will.
Yeah, I don't. What this guy said, Bleacher Report? What's going on?
So the Raptors have had a few mascots. They've had one main mascot the entire time. Yeah. It's been the same guy the whole time. But they've also had Stripes, who you guys are like, you remember him.
No, we don't.
You might have forgotten Bleacher Creature, though. So he was around right in the beginning. And as you guys are aware, like when the Raptors first started, they were playing in this big, wide open stadium. And some of the fans there didn't know that much about basketball even. And it was basically a Bleacher Creature's job to run around and get people going and hype them up. And he was extremely good at his job. I was like, 10, 11 years old at the time. And I loved when he would come by and maybe I'd get a chance to be on the Jumbotron or whatever. I have no idea what he's doing now. If you try to Google him, there's not very much information about him on the internet, aside from Doug Smith occasionally referencing him in a column, but like he definitely existed. And at the time I thought he was wonderful.
Yeah, he would used to go up to the 500 level as well at the Skydome and all of this, but we don't need to get into that. Prehistoric coming soon. Will, round 9.
Hold on. I need the draft comp for Bleacher Creature too.
Yeah, what is the draft?
What did he look like? What did this thing look like? Did it have a gender? Like what was the presentation for this?
So it was just a guy. He was not in like a suit. Like the character was like he was like a hype man.
He was a hype man.
He didn't have a costume on at all?
Yeah.
No, he was a hype man.
He's just a man who called himself a creature.
Yes.
I think he had like a uniform. Like, like Lucky from the Celtics is just like a dude running around. Like it's kind of the same deal, but I don't think the costume was as
this guy's asking for comps.
Wild as that.
Comps for hype.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so Will, round 9, what is your pick?
All right, I have not a human, which is the first time I've drafted someone not a human on this list. I have a digitalized item, the original NFT for the Raptors, the "Don't worry, I got us" tweet from DeMar DeRozan.
Okay.
After Chris Bosh left for Miami, right? There was the whole talk of, well, maybe Chris will stay, maybe Chris will go to the Bulls with Dwayne Wade. No, he goes to Miami. And as soon as that is announced, I guess the rookie still at the time, DeMar DeRozan, tweets out, "Don't worry, I got us," with some dots in between. And it didn't happen immediately, but eventually that came very, very true. And I think in terms of Raptors lore and everything like that, that is an all-time moment when you look back on "Don't worry, I got us." It still gives me chills thinking about it today. So I'm going to draft a tweet, but that's mine. Yep.
No, I love that. So for
it's a really good pick.
Ninth pick for me, you know what? I'm going to take Jeremy Lin. So Jeremy Lin was here.
You got pressure.
Yeah, yeah. No, this Asian Heritage Month.
You already had me on the
soon.
team. You don't have to get.
Oh yeah, that's right. Oh, okay, too late. Jeremy Lin. I think I'm sitting next to the guy who might be the only person who understands this, but I know there was so much excitement that season for Kawhi coming here, but there was equal excitement, at least for myself, when the Raptors picked up Jeremy Lin midseason. Obviously, we know he didn't play a huge role in the championship, but I still think it was so special based on what Linsanity meant to a lot of people, including myself and Will, to see him in a Raptors uniform, to see him win a championship with the Raptors. And I know at the parade, Will was wearing a Jeremy Lin jersey and got it signed by Jeremy.
Yes.
So Jeremy being here in Toronto was honestly more special than probably what he, ended up bringing on the court. So we've got 2 minutes left. Let's do this final round. James, what's your last pick?
By the way, when you pick Jeremy Lin, are you also drafting the Valentine's Day game before he was a Raptor? Because you should get that as part of the pick.
No, I'm drafting his entire history. So
you're drafting his entire heritage. But keep going. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Final pick, James. Let's
the
go.
only Raptor who's been in Markham more than Alex and James.
Let's go. Let's go 30 seconds each here. James, what's your last pick?
Okay, this is also not a person, but unlike Lou's pick, it's an item that does exist in the real world. I'm drafting the 1,300-pound boulder that Dwayne Casey put outside the entrance to the locker room when he arrived as a head coach. It was meant to be a reference to pound the rock, which he kind of stole from the San Antonio Spurs, who themselves stole it from Jacob Reese in this old quote about a stonecutter pounding a rock, and it's like not the first 1,000 times you hit it that makes it break, but it's the one. It's like you do it. The 1,001st one, it's not that one. It's all of the 1,000 that came before it, I guess is the way to put it. But yeah, I'll always remember that being there. And I think it's something that, it's a cult pick because people associate that more with the Spurs and the Raptors. But everybody that paid attention to the Raptors during the Casey era, remember that thing.
All right, 10 seconds each for me and Will to make our final pick. Will, what's your final pick?
For my last pick, I'm going to take an accessory as well. The Serge Ibaka scarf. Come on, the 15-game win streak, everything like that. The scarf battles. Yeah, Serge Ibaka scarf.
Okay, and last one for me, I'm going to take John Saunders, who was on the OG Raptors broadcast on the new VR. Those are the memories for me growing up watching the Raptors. And, rest in peace to John Saunders, who was such a huge part of the early years of the franchise. So that's my final pick. Wow, we could go another 10 rounds, I swear.
I was going to say, we might need round 3, actually.
Okay, James, keep your schedule open for next Monday, okay?
Yeah, the Saturday show with Alex.
Anytime.
Coming to you. That does it for us today. I'm your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. Reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday between 2 and 3 p.m. Thanks to producer and co-host Alex Wong. Thanks to Matt Devlin and James Herbert, our board producer Danielle, and Jennifer Rolnick for helping us behind the scenes with this YouTube stream. I'll talk to you soon.